This video outlines a new direction for Exxon's corporate social responsibility, with the ultimate focus being sustainability. In this context of sustainability, we will draw upon the 5 capitals model, and our study will place great emphasis on the human capital, social capital, and natural capital due to the nature of the petroleum industry. Exxon's businesses can be broken down into upstream and downstream processes. Our study focuses on increasing the sustainability of downstream businesses, as upstream sustainability tends to be technologically orientated. We will provide an in-depth analysis of redesigning petroleum operations to retail customers, technological improvements, as well as energy alternatives. Exxon's current CSR strategy involves standards of business conduct, ethical standards, and various management systems which would manage management control, integrity management, operations, and best practices in and external affairs. This Venn diagram illustrates how Exxon's new CSR strategy will encompass environmental, social, and economic factors when making business decisions. Meeting the world's growing energy demand is and will remain part of Exxon's corporate objectives, and it is impossible to be achieved without some environmental impact. However, under our CSR redesign, we aim to cut Exxon's greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2020. Exxon must reduce environmental impact and at the same time not diminish society's access to energy. Thus, rather than perpetuate the industry norm of pledging but not acting upon promises, we shall propose a structural and cultural redesign with quantifiable targets to improve the sustainability of Exxon. We propose an effective initiative which radically changes the current corporate culture and organizational structure, and to emphasize and spread the value of sustainability both internally and externally. And this is shown in the diagram attached. It is of particular importance to reset its core business culture and to direct the company to a more sustainable and responsible development path in the long term, considering both the company profit as well as the next generation and their living environment. The new business culture and value system should therefore be included in the mission statement and be as follows: to maintain its position as the leading global energy provider and to become a leading green company that strongly contributes to the development of sustainable human society with a strong focus on corporate social responsibility. According to this new business and CSR proposition, drastic changes of the company structure are required. Such changes are internal and external and require the founding of 3 new departments, which are the CSR and Sustainability Department, a Supervision Committee, and Stakeholder Management. The Supervision Committee will be responsible for supervising social responsibility and sustainability implementation throughout the whole company. A carrot and stick system will be developed to reform company employee activities, and the committee would be responsible for breaches of conduct and also have the power to veto or approve any CSR initiative. The Sustainability and CSR Department are responsible for proposing and deciding CSR and sustainability frameworks for the entire enterprise. The micro team should be responsible for activities and issues that directly impact local communities, whereas the macro team are responsible for indirect impacts on society. Furthermore, the Sustainability Department would ensure that the highest level of regulation is enforced throughout all of Exxon's operating nations. The Stakeholders Management System will manage the relationships between different stakeholders who have a vested interest in the sustainability of Exxon. Most importantly, they will disclose the information to media customers, shareholders, and third parties, such as NGOs. All operations will be completely transparent, with public participation being weighted as highly important to meet the needs and worries of all stakeholders. The lack of transparency in ExxonMobil's activities has in the past led to much criticism. Our study suggests that sustainability improvements occur via the following methods, which would encompass short, medium, and long-term aims of improvement. Operational improvements are arguably the easiest and cheapest method to increasing environmental sustainability. The first practice that should be made company policy is the ban of flaring. Flaring refers to the combustion of natural gas that is either of too poor quality or too far away from processing plants to justify the expense of building pipelines to transport it. Employing capture technologies could easily negate flaring. The second practice that should also be banned is venting. Venting is the removal of unwanted carbon dioxide present in the natural gas produced, and this CO2 is separated out from the wet gas at the well, production platform, or processing plant. Venting and flaring can both be banned as business practice without any adverse impact on operational activities, and would result in a 3% reduction in Exxon's total greenhouse gas emissions. Operational energy consumption adds up to 9% of ExxonMobil's total CO2 emissions. As part of our new CSR strategy, we will pledge to have carbon-neutral company energy use by 2020, and this would represent a 9% decrease in total emissions from ExxonMobil. This can be achieved at a relatively low cost by employing renewable energy use and other alternatives. As part of the CSR reform, 6% of net income will be invested in technological improvements for low-carbon fuels, renewable energy, and carbon capture and storage capacity. ExxonMobil should assign the larger portion of funding into the development of technologies with low greenhouse gas emissions. Between the current options, the most efficient is the production of hydrogen fuels. Carbon capture technologies are considered end-of-pipe technologies and can capture up to 90% of emissions from fossil-fueled processes. An improvement of such technology and employment of it would greatly reduce Exxon's carbon footprint. As part of the CSR pledge, Exxon aims to employ this technology across all possible operations by 2012, as its application is imperative to operational efficiency improvements. Much headway has already been made in the development of renewable clean energy, and there is great overlap with investment in low-carbon fuels. One such example is that of creating a biofuel from algae. Exxon already have the capability of creating fuel which will work in the current infrastructure, but face many logistical problems in getting it to consumers and processing such a fuel. Continual investment will yield positive steps in bringing such alternatives to the market. Our new CSR strategy will include a carbon offsetting program, and Exxon customers will be able to save Amazonian rainforests and also plant new trees. If they buy 1,000 litres of fuel purchased, 1 acre of rainforest will be purchased and protected, and for every 50 litres of fuel purchased, a tree will be planted. The World Business Council defines eco-efficiency as a management strategy of doing more with less, but in practice, eco-efficiency is achieved through the pursuit of 3 core objectives. Eco-effectiveness essentially seeks to create industrial systems that emulate healthy, natural systems, and the debate of eco-effectiveness essentially outlines how eco-efficiency only slows down the rate of environmental degradation, rather than promoting a truly sustainable system. The transition of Exxon will inevitably fail to satisfy preachers of the deep green school of thought. However, in terms of drastic changes under corporate pressures, we believe that our proposed actions would easily satisfy the criteria of sustainable business practice. The improvements exhaust all low-hanging fruit, such as the operational efficiency improvements, which would bring about immediate short-term benefits from cost savings. Eco-effectiveness is also wholly satisfied by the operational efficiency improvements, as carbon neutrality will be aimed for business energy consumption, and a drastic reduction in waste will also be achieved due to the banning of venting and flaring. A pledge of 6% of net profit towards research and development into low-carbon fuels and alternative energy are imperative, given the potential of creating a competitive advantage. However, no short-term benefits result from such action, and there is no great certainty that volume of investment is efficient in yielding positive industry developments. One enlightening point of such a strategy is that investment approval for green technologies investments, which pass through the CSR department, are not on profit generation alone, but could be on the strength of environmental impact. The weaknesses of such actions are obvious, in that no quantifiable efficiency gains are immediately attained, but quantifiable amounts of financial capital and expenditure are incurred, thus potentially creating friction with shareholders and managers. Developing green renewable energy poses similar problems to those outlined before, with respect to R&D in that efficiency gains are nil until a breakthrough has occurred and been employed. However, if these investments do not occur, Exxon will not acquire first-mover advantage, and thus funding is imperative. Continual funding of these ventures are likely to cause tensions from shareholders and senior management, as they could urge that selling fuel and generating profits are no longer the number one priority for Exxon. Exxon's carbon offsetting program is both ambitious and expensive, and likely to be branded greenwash by skeptics. However, if implemented correctly, it could stand to offset up to 10% of Exxon's total emissions. As a final word, sustainability in its defined form will become the aspiration of Exxon. Given the nature of the industry, this is a Goliath task which would require huge changes in the company's corporate objectives, and such a radical and drastic change would likely resonate throughout the industry, which would have far-reaching effects on its competitors, as stately bodies would put pressure on other petroleum companies to attain the same level of sustainability. The effects of the CSR repositioning would have both immediate, short-term and long-term consequences for the firm, and winners and losers would be created as a result of these actions. But one clear outcome of this is that society and the natural environment would definitely be one of the winners.